Hello, I'm Beelzebub and welcome to my channel. In my third Criticisms of the Catholic Church video, I'll be discussing the infamous child sex scandal. In the last few decades, the Catholic Church has finally had the spotlight pointed on it for priests sexually abusing children and covering it up. A common argument from several Catholics I knew was that it was only about 1% of priests that would sexually abuse children. Even I would make this argument while I was still indoctrinated, but obviously stopped saying it when I came out of the indoctrination. So let's talk about the numbers. These statistics come from the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, which is affiliated to Georgetown University. And to save myself time and an unnecessary mouthful, I'm going to refer to the group as CARA from now on. CARA gives numbers for every 5 years after 1970, with the exception of 2015. Those numbers apply to the year 2016. Of those years, the one with the lowest number of priests was 1990, with a total of 403,173 priests worldwide. And the year with the largest number of priests was 1970, with 419,728 priests worldwide. Let's look at the argument that only 1% of priests sexually abuse children again. If we apply that number between those 2 years, in 1990, there would have been roughly 4,032 pedophile priests sexually abusing children. During the year 1970, there would have been roughly 4,197 pedophile priests sexually abusing children. Now let's take a look at the most recent year CARA has numbers for. In 2016, the church had 414,969 priests in total, and using the 1% argument again, there would have been roughly 4,150 pedophile priests sexually abusing children. I know I'm saying the phrase pedophile priests sexually abusing children a lot, but I don't want to take away from the damage they're doing to these children by using a softer phrase for the sake of brevity. In 2001, Pope John Paul II tasked Bishop Ratzinger, who would later become Pope Benedict XVI after the death of John Paul II, to investigate the child sex abuse within the church. And in 2001, Bishop Ratzinger penned a letter to bishops across the world. I would like to read that letter. However, it would take too long, and it's so full of flowery legal sounding language that it's likely that most of you will click away from the video after the first minute or two. I wouldn't blame you. I almost certainly would too. Fortunately for you guys, I'm not going to do that to you. Instead, I'll leave a link to the letter down below so you can read it for yourselves. And in this video, I'll give a brief summary of what the letter says. If you can, open the link and read along with me. I'm going to start at the section that says, quote, "the more grave delicts both in the celebration of the sacraments and against morals reserved to the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith are," unquote. You would assume that this is where the church would address the sexual abuse of children. You would have assumed incorrectly. In the list of offenses, enumerating what the list itself calls the more grave delicts, there's no mention at all of child rape. No, instead, the list mentions sins involving the Eucharist. You know, the crackers and wine that Catholics think literally turns into the body and blood of Jesus Christ. That's the thing Ratzinger thinks to mention as the more grave delict, not the violation of a child by means of rape that will scar them for life. The next list is under the heading of, quote, delicts against the sanctity of the sacrament of penance. You would think that if child rape didn't warrant being in the first list of wrongdoings, surely it would be in the second. Except, nope! This list only deals with the violation of the sixth commandment, quote, thou shalt not commit adultery, unquote. The violation here being performing the sacrament of reconciliation, or as it's more well known, confession, for an accomplice of the violation of the sixth commandment. I want to stop right here and point out that in the letter it directly says, quote, 1. Absolution of an accomplice in the sin against the sixth commandment of the Decalogue, unquote. Ratzinger calls children who are unable to consent, or in some cases understand what's happening to them, accomplices in adultery. These children that were raped by your priests, the priests that you protected, are not accomplices. They are victims. And to make any claim otherwise is a sick fucking lie. By calling children who are unable to consent or possibly unable to understand what's happening accomplices in this sin is simply blaming the victim. And I won't stand for it. And finally, as if it's nothing more than just an afterthought, as if it were something that just happened to slip the mind, not even getting its own list, just a single bullet point, quote, a delict against morals, namely the delict committed by a cleric against the sixth commandment of the Decalogue with a minor below the age of 18 years. This violation is the most egregious, vile, and detrimental to a human life, and it is the last to be considered, and it's given the least consideration. You've got some priorities to get straight, Catholic Church. Get on that shit. The remainder of the letter, I think, is written plainly enough that you can figure it out for yourselves. So I'll just give you the simplified version here. What the remainder of the letter breaks down to is summed up most easily as the Apostolic Tribunal of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith has sole jurisdiction over any and all impropriety of the clergy who sexually assaulted children, not the civil authorities. Truth be told, it should be the civil authorities who have sole jurisdiction over the matter. Why would we trust the Catholic Church to investigate one of its own thoroughly? In Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia, quote, the highest ranking Catholic official to be convicted of covering up sex abuse was spared prison and sentenced to 6 months home detention in Australia due to his ailing health and age. The Archbishop of Adelaide, Philip Wilson, was found guilty in May of concealing the abuse of altar boys in the 1970s by pedophile priest James Fletcher. You'll find the CNN article I just referenced in the description below. Fletcher did pay for his crimes, fortunately. He was sentenced to prison and in 2015 died serving that sentence. The Archbishop plans on appealing the decision, and although he has stepped aside from his duties until the appeals process is done, he has not stepped down from his position. This meager amount of let's be generous and call it justice comes from secular authorities. Imagine how badly we'd be found wanting if we relied upon the church to dole out what I'll again generously call justice. Considering past behavior of the church, it's likely that the whole matter would have been swept under the rug and the archbishop probably would have just been moved elsewhere. Unfortunately, there are no statistics for this treason against children globally. There are numbers for the United States, though, so let's look at those. In a national study by the John Jay College of Criminal Justice of the City University of New York that looked at the time period between 1950 and 2002, it was found that about 11,000 allegations were made against 4,392 priests in the U.S. Out of the roughly 110,000 priests who served, about 4% of them had allegations made against them. The problem was so widespread that in the 52 years studied, it had, quote, affected more than 95% of the diocese and approximately 60% of religious communities. Of the 11,000 allegations made, 3,300 weren't investigated at all because the allegations were made after the accused priest died. Because why bother with justice, right? 6,700 of the allegations were substantiated, and the remaining 1,000 could not be substantiated. Alright everyone, that'll do it for this video. I know this one was a lot heavier than my other videos, but this isn't an easy topic to discuss. As per usual, you'll be able to find all the links to my sources in the description box down below. If you liked the video and found it informative, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter to keep up with all of my comings and goings. You'll find that link down below with the sources. Take it easy, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.